have a vocal warm up. Does anyone have a vocal warm up to like really get it going?
Not
Tony.
when we're live, no.
Tony, you have a vocal warm up. Please tell me you have a vocal warm up.
Yeah, no, it's too late. We're live.
You knew we were live. I didn't know if it told you.
You can't pull it over on me, dude.
Oh, all right, whatever. Anyway, this is the part where I talk to the audience. Hey, audience. Welcome. This is MURS, I guess. MURS stands for Alandra. What does MURS stand for?
Mobile Utopian Recovery Systems.
Yes. For when your utopian society falls apart, who's going to pick it out of the water? Good answer. So, this is where...
Oh, wait, it's a different direction with that one.
Yay! People can actually hear us this week.
Hear us. It's magic.
Hey, oh my God.
Thank you.
Oh, Charmstone Games. Thank you for jumping in. Thank you for joining us today. Today we're going to talk about episode 3 of WandaVision. If you missed last week's episode, it's probably still up on Twitch. It was pretty rough. I actually went back and watched it, and all the audio disappeared pretty good on several points. So we'll see. If you need a recap of episode 1 and 2, go check out, I think bleedingedge.com or Bloody Good News or Rotten Tomatoes. Like that. But here we are. It is episode 3, and I believe this is the first time I've noticed a title for an episode. This episode was called Now in Color. I don't know if the last 2 episodes had names. I was trying to look for names for them.
I don't think they did, but they do now. Like, if you go on Disney Plus now, because I wrote this down, the first episode was called Filmed Before a Live Studio Audience. Episode 2 was called Don't Touch That Dial.
Yes.
Okay.
I want to jump into let's get the easy stuff out of the way. Who wants to do a play-by-play of this episode? I wish I had a wheel to spin. All right, I'm looking at you, Alandra. You're typing something.
Yeah, sorry. I was doing nerd things. I can do a recap thing. Great. We're doing a play-by-play. All right.
Just the beats.
Yeah. So this is our first episode in full color, as the title suggests. We get once again a new credit sequence reminiscent of the sitcoms of the 70s. Specifically the Brady Bunch, which I'm sure Tony will have more to talk about later. We open up with Wanda and Vision and the doctor paying a house call to check out Wanda's pregnancy. We get some hilarious old-timey banter about not knowing how sex works and where babies come from, things like that. After which, Wanda and Vision discuss the fact that this seems really odd and very fast and kind of concerning, but they're happy and it's exciting. And they start getting ready for the baby to come. They work on the nursery. Vision reads a lot of books. They start to track and calculate how fast this baby is coming and determine it'll be Friday. I don't know what day of the week it is, but be like on Friday. As the pregnancy rapidly progresses over the course of literal hours through the day, Wanda's magic starts to go a little haywire and cause problems both in their home and around the neighborhood. There's some spontaneous blackouts, water pipes burst, and eventually it looks like she's going to go into labor very fast, like right now. So Vision races off to get the doctor. Geraldine, who we met in, I believe, episode 2, happens to stop by, and wacky hijinks ensue while Vision is trying to get to the doctor before he leaves for Bermuda, and Wanda is trying to keep Geraldine from realizing that her magic is going bananas, or even exists. Of course, intrinsic compassion, she then ends up giving birth on the floor of her living room with Geraldine assisting her, and Vision arriving just moments after the baby is born, and they get to have a sweet and tender moment that is punctuated by some additional insanity. A spontaneous surprise of... Should I say it? Should I go ahead and spoil it? Is this where I just spoil the thing?
Oh, I already tagged everything for spoilers.
Great. The spontaneous surprise of twins! There's 2 babies. And then a lovely little wrap-up as Wanda seems to suddenly remember that she herself is a twin and sings a Sokovian lullaby to her babies while the neighbors outside talk to Vision about something that they don't actually want to talk about. They almost mentioned that there's something up with Geraldine and even them, and they aren't something. And then Vision goes back in the house and everything's perfectly lovely, and the last shot we get is Geraldine being ported outside of the city via Wanda's magic and swarmed by a bunch of very militaristic looking helicopters and cars.
If everyone agrees,
on things.
Yeah. If everyone agrees that that's the synopsis, put a thumbs up. I'm going to do a thumbs up. Yeah, that's what happened.
Sounds good.
I don't know why
But I watched the episode 2 hours before we filmed, so that I fresh up.
This is my new gimmick: is the thumbs up. Yeah, that's what happened. At some point, one of us is going to lie and not have watched the episode and just kind of wing it.
Well, at that point, it just becomes a game of how spot on were they?
It's just Duncan Sailor. One of us has not seen the episode and just has to BS all the way through. All right, I'm going to go to Otis. Feyhd, what? As far as the greater MCU goes, because we're going to pick this apart, but I want everyone to go through.
Mm-hmm.
What for you stood out this episode as far as the greater universe of the MCU?
Well, so it seems like now we know that they're on Earth, it seems like, and maybe some section that's been cordoned off somehow, either by Wanda's magic or maybe Sword has put up some sort of facility. It's kind of unclear. But they're clearly seem to be watching them from the outside and maybe trying to watch them from the inside as well. It seemed like Geraldine was an agent that they sent in and she got made somehow, but maybe her memories were being altered or something like that. It's kind of unclear. Mm-hmm. But then she kind of started to remember as she was hearing the song, and then she had the little sword necklace on, which I was like, I saw that earlier in the episode and I was like, are they going to address that? It's like, that's a thing, right? And then eventually at the very end, it's like, okay. But yeah, so it seems like they're in a world that is at least accessible from Earth, and that's a big improvement from possibly being in space or in another dimension or who knows what. And it also seems to be modern times in, on the outside world, which is also kind of important to notice.
Yes.
Yeah, and, I was also a little thrown by the
Tony,
sword necklace only because...
What'd you grab? What was this episode actually about?
You weren't kidding about that delay.
Yep.
First of all, yeah, I thought the sword necklace was kind of weird only because, I don't know, that's kind of the equivalent of, someone had a necklace that said FBI on it. It's kind of a giveaway, isn't it? In terms of, yeah, this one, interestingly enough, a little lighter on the sitcom references. In terms of specific things, you had the Brady Bunch, which has been referenced, the Partridge Family. The intro is very Partridge Family.
Yeah.
This one was more, I would say, closer to the Truman Show than anything else.
Yeah.
In terms of things starting to very obviously go wrong. You have Herb cutting into the brick. You've got more things that are a little off. And then I realized I got to a point where now I'm just looking for things that aren't necessarily there. Because I'm like, oh, at one point she's wearing a fur coat. Is that Uncle Fester's fur coat from the Addams Family? No, probably not. Probably not. And then during the opening credits, they're riding on a tandem bicycle. And my first thought was, oh, that's in the opening credits of Laverne and Shirley. And then I realized, oh no, they're riding a bike, but one of them's sitting on the handlebars. And then I read somewhere else, they're like, oh, it's in Three's Company. I was like, no, he's just riding a bike, and then he falls over because the cute lady goes by. We're all starting to see things that aren't necessarily there, which is a testament to the show, because so far everything else has been really well set up. And also, the end of the episode, the song is Daydream Believer by the Monkees, who had their own sitcom in the 60s. So I don't think that was an intentional sitcom riff, but just a little added bonus to, because obviously it's more about the title of the song as a little clue than anything else. But yeah, that was. Oh, and also the not a specific sitcom thing, but the doctor's name is Dr. Nielsen, which I assume is a reference to Nielsen ratings, which is how, I mean, they still use it to like monitor who's watching it, but now it's like it's only part of the equation now, where it used to be like that was how to determine ratings. Anyway, back to Luke in about 10 seconds. I think that's where I'm at right now.
That was pretty solid. Actually, I was thinking about my computer keeps saying you are not connected. Funny, as far as sitcoms go, I was trying to look up references to this episode, and someone pointed at, I think it was, I don't know if it's the last episode or it's one of the later episodes of Mork and Mindy, where Mort is going to have a baby, and it comes out of his belly button, out of his navel. But it happens within the span of a day. And these twins come within a span of a day. Except for that time, the only significance there being that it comes within the span of a day. In the comic books, there is an issue of, I think Pepper Potts gets pregnant within the span of it and has a child by the end of the day. I've never read the issue. It just came up as, is this a reference to anything? And the first thing that comes up is like, there's this really bad issue of Iron Man. No one likes it. So I don't think they would reference that. I think this is a Mork and Mindy reference, because that's better.
The interesting
as far as the goals of this episode, was this a good episode? Like, the last two episodes were so slow burning and so. Go ahead, please.
Well, sorry, I had to wait for that delay. Before we come to that, the more interesting thing.
Don't go ahead.
The more interesting thing I thought about.
My computer's still saying a reconnect. Oh, okay. I'm on the moon.
Yeah, because we're all in the same call.
I don't know what is happening.
This is why we're doubling up the audio, so we can just cut and repatch later if we need to.
I can't wait to see what the technical glitch is next
doesn't
week.
Break the internet. Let me.
I don't know if I should just keep vamping with my thought.
I say keep talking.
Oh, right.
He's distracted. Go for it.
Great.
I want to know.
Here was the thing that I was going to bring up was, so early in the episode, Wanda.
I don't know what else to do. I literally hit the button. Do it again.
It's just you, man. It's just you.
Keep talking. Go.
Great.
Go.
Early in the episode, Wanda and Vision are discussing baby names, right? And they have this whole conversation about Billy, which is Wanda's suggestion, or Tommy, which is Vision's suggestion.
By the way.
What am I doing?
I don't know, Luke. I don't know. I'm trying to focus on my thought, and I can't because he's right in my line of vision. They have this whole discussion about baby names. They can't decide. They're like, well, maybe it'll be a girl. It'll be fine. And then by the end of the episode, when they have twins, they end up using both names, Billy and Tommy. And of course, the first baby that comes, they name as Tommy. This is clearly a reference to their kids in the comic books, who are twins, Tommy and Billy, who then later on are part of the Young Avengers and are known as Speed and Wiccan. And so I was wondering if the accelerated pregnancy thing, aside from just being a gimmick for the show, also had to do with the reference to Tommy having speed powers that are derived from Wanda's connection to Pietro, Quicksilver, her twin. And then, of course, Billy, Wiccan, has her, like, reality manipulating magic powers. So I was wondering if maybe that had something to, like, if they're trying to set up a precedent for the twins' magic that they happen to have.
Oh, that's possible. I never considered that. Yeah, I wasn't really sure where the names were coming from, but I was like, that must be referencing somebody that actually exists in the comics, but I wasn't aware of that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I definitely had to double check it because Tommy, I wasn't remembering, but Billy, I was like, wait, that's Wiccan. Hang on, are they actually going here? I've been pitching. I've been wanting a Young Avengers series forever, and so having them, and then knowing that later in the planned Marvel Cinematic stuff, we're getting a Hawkeye series that is introducing Kate Bishop, who is the other Hawkeye, who is also a member of the Young Avengers. I'm wondering if we're starting to fold in all of these options to eventually, like later down the line, in a whatever we're on cycle 27 Marvel release,
right?
Finally get to kind of a Young Avengers setup.
Well,
I would not be surprised if that was the plan.
By the way, can you
just
can you
setting up the long
life?
game? Which I mean, got to do it somehow.
Yeah.
Am I happening in
also
real
curious,
time?
Wasn't this also a Bewitched plot at the same time of like her being pregnant and like the her powers setting her off, or was it always just cats? I forget.
I mean, I think she was pregnant twice on the show. I think she had 2 kids eventually. That was the other thing, kind of not a specific trope, but the fact that you get to the 70s, which is when they started to do more episodes that changed the status quo. Some, not that it didn't happen before that. Lucy put her real life pregnancy into the show, but you started to do shows where like they were starting to care about continuity. They were starting to treat their characters like real people and let them evolve a little bit more. So I thought it was an interesting little bit of timing that now, this is the episode where, she has a baby, and, that's going to change everything. So
it's interesting that you brought up continuity too, because one of the notes that I wrote down, because this is such a me thing to fixate on, in the scene where this Vision goes outside to check on, I don't remember if it's the power outage or I think the first power outage, and then he comes back in and they have this whole conversation. It's the one where they start to get a little bit meta about talking about like there was the thing with the hearts and the whatever, and then the rewind happens or the reset happens, which we've seen now a couple of times, the little like blip back reset. I was super fixated on his shirt collar because one side was tucked into his vest and the other side was out. And as somebody who's worked in theater and doing that, it's like, untuck it, fix his collar. But what I was waiting to see is, does it change between shots? And it never did, including in the reset. And I was like, interesting. I'm not sure if this is a deliberate filmmaking choice on them setting up a weirdly obvious thing that could break continuity and then doesn't, or if it was just a mistake. But even if it was a mistake, it's a mistake that they maintained continuity of then through the changes in camera angle, which leads into that like filming in front of a live studio audience sitcom setup.
I literally was
to switch it, you
so...
just have your camera set up. That, I don't know if that's a cinematic thing or a story thing, but it was like I spent that entire time like staring at that going, please fix his collar. I don't know what it means. Is this a code? I don't know. We're 3 episodes in and I'm like coming up with conspiracy theories about like, her sleeves are rolled up. Is that a suggestion that she's actually from a different universe?
Yeah, if she has her sleeves rolled up, that's evil Wanda, obviously.
Clearly.
I mean, yeah.
Her life is becoming untucked like that shirt.
It
doesn't make any sense.
Can you all hear me, by the way?
Yeah, you're back now.
Yeah, you're back now.
All right, I don't think I'm on the stream. So
I can check that.
No, you are on the stream. We're getting you from I assume your computer, because right now you're looking at another camera.
No.
Looking at you looking down.
Okay, cool. No, the audio is going through the stream. Video should be anyway. All right, whatever. I was gonna say I am on the moon, and yes, I was noticing the tucked in collar, and it was freaking me out. But it never changed, so I was like, "Good on you." Well, all right. The Young Avengers thing is not too far off. I mean, like if they're already setting up Bishop, are they setting up Kate Bishop as a show or as a movie?
The show is Hawkeye, and it is going to have both Clint Barton and Kate Bishop in it. I suspect, based on the branding of the title, that they might be pulling from the Matt Fraction arc. To set it up where it's going to be him working in New York solo and her teaming up with him, and then possibly setting up her splitting off and doing her own thing as the PI.
Okay.
Because she's coming. Because the casting is for like a, an actual like 20-something-year-old Kate Bishop.
I was going to say that it would have been interesting to see if it was more of a setup like the CW does, where it's like you have the mentor and like the main character is the student. So Kate Bishop as the main character, but then starting to pull in Wiccan or Speed or any other younger character that starts showing up as this kind of. But that would be horrible because if anyone's watched a CW comic book show, it is people dealing with their emotions for forever and not doing anything about it, and then a set piece.
Well, I don't think they'd go that exact direction, but I do think I think the setup, if we're going to get essentially an already grown Kate who is already training and learning with Clint, my suspicion was that they were actually setting it up to where she is going to become the Hawkeye protagonist, because, to be perfectly honest, I don't see them wanting to keep Jeremy Renner on as a long-term TV front runner. I could see
he's from Modesto. You pay him peanuts.
It wasn't a cost thing. It's more of a branding thing. He's like the least popular Avenger, whereas having, using the existing characters to set up a much cooler and more badass version of that character.
The Garth Brooks of Avengers.
I mean, I'm saying this with all the love of my heart. Hawkeye is my favorite Avenger from the comics. So,
all right. Before this turns into a Hawkeye speculative show, can we? What this episode, I think, was the payoff for sticking around for episode 1 and 2. Not that the episode 1 and 2 were like drains on our lives. Again, a nice short 20-minute episode, all about it. Did this change any of our views, or are we left with, on a scale of X-Files to David Lynch, what are we left with more questions? Are we in Twin Peaks, or are we just in a soft core Twin Peaks like Riverdale? Like, what's happening? Are we knowing from what does this episode change about what we've already seen?
I feel like this at least grounds it in the fact that, like, this isn't happening just in somebody's mind, or like this is, at least kind of lets us know that there are other characters that can come in here and like change things that our main characters might not have control of. And that I got the feeling that the people that occupy the town might actually be real, but might be controlled somehow or manipulated in a way that maybe by Wanda, maybe by somebody else. It's kind of unclear, but it seems like they don't want to be there. Yeah, that's what I got from this final episode, which was a lot faster and more like getting to the meat of like what's happening finally.
Tony, what do you think about that? What does this episode mean to you?
This episode, I think it solidified for me more of what Alandra was saying, that like this is, as we said in episode 2, this is for the children. This is we are establishing this next generation of Avengers, which it occurred to me as we were discussing it, the Marvel series, because Disney, they're going to run this into the ground until they're going to keep this going as long as they can. So we're getting introducing the next generation. I'm like, and it occurred to me, Marvel is kind of our generation soap opera, like the MCU. This is our, like, they killed off this character, but they're focusing on this character, and you can kind of jump in whenever you want. Like, there's different continuities. So, I think we're, this episode kind of zeroed in on, okay, this is why we're here. It's got something to do with these kids, and this, I think to answer your other question, interestingly enough, even though I don't think any questions were answered, I felt kind of satisfied with this episode of like where it was going. And I was trying to figure this out as well. It's like, okay, so what are they doing that the Star Wars sequels did so wrong. They've established this mystery, but I knew going in to this, like, okay, they've got a plan. They've got an exit strategy. Whereas, Force Awakens is just like, here's all these mysteries. Oh, and what do they mean? Look over there! Like, so, and then we'll answer it in 8 and then backtrack it in 9. It's all good. But that is a rant for another show. But yeah, I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but watching this, I'm still willing to go along for the ride, because I'm like, all right, you still have some story to tell.
Yeah.
I still am not quite sure what it is. But yeah, and I agree with Otis that, okay, I'm still not quite sure who's controlling everything, but I know it's not just Wanda.
Okay.
She can change things within this universe, but not as it's not as well. Who knows?
Well,
so, sorry, Alandra, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna ask, because I wasn't here last week because I was having a complete and total mental breakdown, which I fixed, and now I'm here. Hooray! But perfect setup for this show. I wasn't sure.
Look, when we said research, we just meant watch the show. That was
shoot! My bad. Sorry, guys. I took that a little too seriously. I wasn't sure if this came up last in the last episode when you guys were talking about episodes 1 and 2, but all of the, like, looking at all 3 of them now, I believe all of the title sequences specifically have involved the hexagon, which is traditionally the symbol of AIM.
That's what it was.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
So, oh man. Oh, do I have I have a conspiracy corner that I'll sit on my conspiracy soapbox.
I
was trying to remember what that was, because I kept seeing it in the show, and I was like, that's something, and I don't remember what that symbol means. It's like,
no, the hexagon is AIM, and so then when sword, because I was expecting an AIM reference to show up, but then when sword came up, I was like, oh, that actually makes more sense, because sword, of course, being the anti-shield. But then I was like, oh, okay, so we've got a couple of different things going, and also all of the commercials. I assume we've caught that every commercial we had in episode 1, it was a Stark product. In episode 2, it was Strucker, and then in episode 3, it was Hydra. So we're definitely getting those clear references to all of the companies that are also our bad guys.
Yeah.
So I have conspiracy soapbox that I'm gonna not quite stand up on quite yet, because I have a lot of ideas that are going off the rails, and before I go on my rant, I want to make sure that everyone is satisfied with things they have to say. Normally, at this point, I would switch over to the chat, but we have 4 people in chat, so I'm just going to keep it to us at the moment. 4 people who are listening to us, devoted listeners, thank you very much. I'm sure there will be a Patreon at some point. Give at least there's a few failed actors here. I'm not going to point fingers.
I object to the word failed.
Luke, we're acting right now. This is the most acting I've done in years.
I've never been so excited for anything.
Yeah.
All of my acting attempts have been successful, thank you very much. Whether or not people saw it, that's a whole other thing.
Your hard work got you to be the man you are today.
Viewership does not determine success.
Obviously.
If we keep talking about this episode's going to end with a mental breakdown. So.
Well, all right. Maybe now I get on my soapbox. Can I get on my soapbox?
Sure.
Conspiracy soapbox? All right. Okay. So, a lot of people have been mentioning how the Beekeeper's outfit is similar in shape and style to AIM. All right, Tony, this is going to be a lot of info dump for you. So, AIM, Advanced Idea Mechanics, showed up once in Iron Man 3. It was headed by, what's the actor's name? Who's the bad guy in that one?
Is that Sam Rockwell?
Guy Pearce.
Oh, okay.
Guy Pearce is the guy who starts AIM, Advanced Idea Mechanics. In the comic books, they do a bunch of evil stuff, including making my favorite villain, who is always the butt of a joke, MODOK. I don't know why they make him the butt of a joke, because he is literally the most fiercest man, but they keep making him the butt of a joke.
For anybody who's never seen this character is a giant head with tiny arms and tiny legs. For the sake of the audio listeners only,
He floats in a rocket chair,
floats in a rocket chair.
Yeah.
Sorry, if you weaponize Stephen Hawking's, this is what you get.
We've gotten MODOK in the world too. MODOK shows up ever so briefly, at least in reference, in Captain America 2: Winter Soldier.
Did he?
No, he doesn't.
Yep, they reference MODOK through Toby Stephens' character.
Wow.
Which was
when
Toby
he appears
Stephens?
as the computer brain.
No. That's not. Oh man, this is now. Here's a nerd fight. All right, so. No, Toby Stephens' character is a reference to another character who was kind of a lackey of Baron von Strucker, like the proper Baron. And the character's name, he is literally a TV in a robot body, which is why they show a TV screen when they show him. And if I can't remember his name, but
I'm sorry, it's Toby Jones is the actor, and it's Artem Zola.
Artem Zola, yeah, not MODOK.
But
you save your ace.
I know the
in
character
the hole.
is not MODOK, but that is the reference that they are making. I swear, I think they're combining those two characters for the MCU. I know you don't want them to, but I think they're doing it.
MODOK is too cool. I can see Tony just rubbing his face, ready for this conversation to be over.
I'm pulling a Fauci, just...
Okay, so Conspiracy Corner. So there's been some suggestion that the B outfit is actually similar enough in shape and look to an AIM outfit. Aaron brought up when we were rewatching the episodes is that things that fall into the universe fall in with theme with the universe. So imagine you see a sword helicopter in episode 2. You see a little toy one, right? But when it crosses into the world, and this is all Buccaneer Aaron's thought, and I really enjoyed it, was that it crosses into the world, but it doesn't fit. So to make it fit, it turns into a toy helicopter. So when you have Geraldine pop into the universe, Geraldine doesn't look like sword uniform Geraldine. She looks like a normal person. So whatever, if anything from the outside comes in, it turns into something that would fit in the universe. So if you imagine an AIM person, they're wearing a hazmat suit, basically, is what their costume looks like. But when they pop into the universe, it looks like a beekeeping outfit.
Oh, I like that. I like that a lot.
But the sword symbol on his back.
Yeah.
I think, so maybe we're seeing a combination of sword and AIM, potentially, which is not uncommon in Captain America 2, Winter Soldier. We see that Hydra has taken control of S.H.I.E.L.D. ages ago.
Sure.
So I think having AIM take part in sword is not out of the realm of imagination. All right, my next thing. I was looking back, and someone mentioned how the toaster in the first episode, the old toaster, because they compared two toasters side by side. There's the normal toaster, and there's the new Tony Stark toaster. The old toaster has a ribbon design on it that, if you flip it upside down, looks like 666. And this is where Conspiracy Corner happens. All right, so a lot of there's this idea in the comic books where Mephistopheles' power was used to create Wanda's children. Or like as part of his soul or whatever, yada yada, blah, blah, blah. And episode 2 makes a lot of mentions of devil in the details. In episode 1, Agnes says, "I'm on the right of your house, not your right, my right," meaning Wanda's left, which is where the little devil sits. If you have a little angel, you have a little devil. Devil sits on the left. So in episode 2, they mentioned about devils being the details. That's not the only place he is also what he says about Agnes says when that line's mentioned. So I have a theory. Get ready. 1, Dottie is the devil.
Okay.
The devil, Dottie, in episode 2 is auditioning Wanda, is trying to trust Wanda to make a deal with Wanda. The deal: Wanda wants to have children and have the life she was refused when Vision dies. Sorry, Tony, spoilers. Dies.
What?
In Endgame. Or in Infinity War. So, Vision's dead. Right? Wanda wants the life she wanted with Vision. Wants to have a family with Vision. Specifically with Vision. Makes a deal with the devil. Dottie. You have to get in good with Dottie or else you're not going to be part of the town. Mm-hmm. Okay. Gets in good with Dottie. Dottie is also scared of Wanda. Because you have two people who have kind of like a similar power. They both can destroy each other pretty well. But one is looking for something from the other. So like, you can destroy me, but you're looking for this very specific thing. You want to have children. That's where we start hearing it's all for the children. It's for the children. That's what's on the plate as a deal, right? Boom. Cool. So Dottie's like, oh, you know what? Cool, deal's made. I can trust that you're gonna like play cool in my realm. You can have children. The reveal that is the thing that's never revealed to us during this episode, on episode 3, with Herb and Agnes. Herb's about to say something that they're all here, they're all here, they're all here. They're all dead. These are all dead people. The only person here who is alive is Wanda. Vision's dead, and everyone else who lives here is dead. Geraldine's not supposed to be there, and Wanda immediately kicks her out because Wanda's trying to make a deal with the devil that is airtight, which means no interference from people of the living. Boom.
You ready for me to add on to or possibly punch a hole in that?
No!
I like that.
He was dancing.
I know he was dancing. You know
Go ahead.
who, well, okay, so SWORD in the comics is mostly headed by X-Men. Like, it's mostly the X-Men who are members of SWORD, which is the extraterrestrial division of S.H.I.E.L.D., essentially. Not exactly, but indirectly. However, in the MCU universe, we don't have the X-Men yet, but we do have somebody who deals with extraterrestrial bullshit, and that's Captain Marvel. You know who one of Captain Marvel's other Marvels is? And here I'm going to drop a big spoiler on this. Monica Rambeau.
Boom.
Geraldine is Monica Rambeau.
That would be cool.
I think it's actually accidentally confirmed, honestly.
This is not an original theory. I think that this came lodged in my brain from probably something that I read that like either proposed this as a theory or something. But it also makes sense with where we're at, because that's the thing too, is we don't know exactly where this happens in the larger MCU timeline.
Yeah.
We don't have any confirmation of that. So it's entirely possible. And I believe, in the comics at least, Monica Rambeau was Captain Marvel before and after our traditional Captain.
Danvers.
Tony,
anyway,
I want to make sure. Do you know who we're talking about when we say Monica Rambeau?
Yes, only because you are not the only people to have mentioned this. It is the only thing that's been spoiled for me so far.
Okay.
Because so after we did last week's episode, I looked up a couple of like, oh, here's some Easter eggs that you may not have noticed in episodes 1 and 2. And they straight up just call her Monica in the recap videos.
Yeah.
They do not call her Geraldine. But I think, here's the thing, I think that was, like, I think that was in, like, a press release or something. I think that was, like, officially revealed in anticipation that she was Monica. So I think, but yes, that information is out there.
I'm at least glad to know that I didn't just pull that out of my butt. I'm sure I got this from somewhere.
That is seems to be like a leak that happened very early on. Let's see. I had a soapbox Alandra, did you have a soapbox? Do you feel like you had a conspiracy soapbox?
I don't know that I have a conspiracy soapbox. I think I'm just going to continue to try to poke holes in everybody else's theories based on my own because I like ruining people's fun. I also got to ramble. You guys, look, my first episode on, and you guys already let me get into my Hawkeye bullshit, so I think I'm good.
Good point. Well, that's because I couldn't see or hear myself. Come on. Feyhd, do you have a conspiracy soapbox for this episode? Do you feel like, do you think you know what's happening? Do you know what's happening?
I really like the AIM and the Hydra-controlled AIM, SHIELD kind of cooperation kind of idea, but I had a theory that this was kind of leading into not a secret invasion somehow, and that because the For the Children kind of made me think of something like parasitic was controlling whatever wherever they were, and maybe that Wanda knew where they were, but they were in some sort of nest or hive or something that was controlling them, and maybe she was trying to make a deal with that.
Before you go into that, explain secret invasion real quick.
Aliens are taking over heroes and the whole entire Earth, but by replacing people. It's body snatchers, kind of that kind of situation. And you got to figure out who to trust. Otherwise, you might be trusting the wrong person, and then you're gone. That kind of thing. But I know that's a thing that they're teasing down the line, but I don't know if that's going to actually tie into this in particular. Yeah. But I was just that's a direction it could go in.
Cool. Tony, do you have a conspiracy soapbox? As someone who does not read these funny books.
these comic books. I don't really. At this point, I'm just kind of going along for the ride. I do. You were not the only person to have the Mephisto conspiracy theory, which, if it's going down that path, I'm just so excited that Disney is doing a show with the devil in it. That makes me happy. In this episode, they had a shot of a dog urinating in the commercial. I'm like, okay, we're getting there, Disney.
We're getting edgy. Watch out, Disney's getting.
I just like the devil is canon in the Disney universe now.
Do you think? Do you think, Tony, with how edgy, how cutting edge this show is for content for Disney, we're gonna see a re-release of the Black Cauldron?
It's on Disney Plus, and I started rewatching it, and I got about 10 minutes in, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is not that great actually. I hope that the Black Cauldron gets some loving. There was talk of them doing a remake or a limited series that's based on all the books, because I think they still
jump on that Game of Thrones void and do a series of the Chronicles of Prydain. It's the perfect time, and it's a young adult series. It would be perfect for Disney Plus.
Because I think, as far as I know, I think they still own the rights to all of the Chronicles of Prydain. So
I don't know. They still they had to make Daryl Hannah's hair longer to cover up her butt in the movie Splash before it showed up on Disney.
That is a weird one, and I don't Well, funny enough, my roommate and I were talking about this the other day. Of violence and swearing is fine, but nudity, God forbid. And I'm just, if you're going to show someone's butt, it should be Daryl Hannah.
Really?
Why not? And, they show Homer Simpson's butt on The Simpsons. That's on Disney Plus. That's, it's a double standard. That's what I'm saying. What was I was going to say? And just kind of going back to my limited knowledge of Marvel, when Wanda started talking about, I was a twin, I had a brother, I was like, oh, that's right, I completely forgot. Not only did she have a twin brother, she also used to have an accent. I completely forgot.
Yeah.
It snuck in there for a little bit. Pietro. I'm like, oh, that's right. It came back to me. I was like, oh, that's right. Her accent work was terrible. So, I can't remember. Isn't that how they explained it? A way that she was she got really into American culture. Wasn't that a thing?
There was a whole thing in, I believe it was Infinity War, a little bit before that, but especially that, about how after Pietro dies, she just like basically kind of self-isolates and spends a lot of time watching American TV, and so she slowly starts to retrain her accent because she's watching a lot of TV, which there was a whole thing about how WandaVision and this being the riff on the sitcoms, if this is a world that she is creating, she is manipulating, that she is having an influence on, she is drawing all these influences from the TV, the American television that she's watched, trying to find a way to cope with just generally everything going on in her life. It's not been good for a long time.
So what I'm hearing is we are all here right now because Elizabeth Olsen couldn't do a Slovenian accent. That's what I'm hearing.
Well,
It's
all
like
right,
that's
hold
sort of
on.
the chain of events that got us to WandaVision.
It's not the weirdest conspiracy theory.
So I do have a conspiracy theory. I do have a soapbox.
You do. Your soapbox is the what happened to Elizabeth.
Is when her dialect coach quit the movies and
All right.
at him.
So all right. Well, okay. There's a funny point in this, and it's Slovenian, which is a made-up country, if I'm correct. It's not Slovakia.
Slovakia. It is a made-up country that is a weird mashup of like 6 ex-USSR countries.
Yeah. All right. Here's the goofy thing. Not to brag, but I've traveled to Europe.
Oh, yeah, Sokovia.
Sokovia.
Yeah.
So there's this funny moment where I made friends with this lady in Denmark, Louise. Louise and all her friends spoke better English than I did and my ex-wife. Me and my ex-wife were just like drunk Americans, California, and it was just like, why do you guys speak so well? Why do you speak so well? And their answer was like, oh, we love The Office. And so I think maybe this is not too far of an explanation of like, oh, they love TV.
Yeah, no, I can believe it.
Quick tangent. I don't know if they'll get to it, but if they do a 2000s episode, I want it to be like an Office-style mockumentary. Where
That would be great.
Do I think that the devil made me have these kids? I don't know.
Oh, that would be so good.
I know they're going to do a Roseanne reference.
Oh, God.
I assume that'd be... Oh, well, maybe the 90s episode.
Yeah, I was thinking about a 90s kind of episode, right?
Do you think we're going to get a fully animated episode in the vein of, like, The Simpsons, where it's like, it doesn't change any of the continuity, but it is fully animated?
That would be a season 2. I feel like that's a season 2.
That's fair.
I would love that, though. It'd be like... What was the Community episode where it's a stop-motion Christmas special to deal with Abed's trauma?
Oh, man. All right.
Okay. I have to throw this one in here. It's not totally on topic, but I feel at least Tony will appreciate this. Was anybody else annoyed by the fact that the commercial break for this one, for the Hydra Soak, was clearly a reference to Take Me Away, Calgon, which didn't premiere until 1980?
Oh.
Wow. That is a deep cut. That did not occur to me.
No, because I saw that.
I appreciate it.
But it's the wrong era. Why did you do... What the fuck? The other two are correct. Where did this one come from?
Okay, me and Otis are lost. We need you two to help us out here.
Calgon was a brand of soap. I mean, maybe it was around the 70s.
They were around since the 1930s when they were a water softener company. And then they eventually, they started as water softener and then branched into bath products. And they're famous for their series of commercials in the 80s and 90s where it's like the stressed out mom running around and then she'd just be like, take me away, Calgon. And you'd cut to like her at the spa with like the Fabio man, like giving her a massage and like beautiful scented bath oils and everything was relaxing because she had Calgon. It's still technically one of the company taglines.
You say that this was improper use. I say it's a crack in reality.
Well, that's why I'm saying, like, was this a continuity error, or was it a deliberate, like, we're now breaking the format, or am I just the only person in the world who would catch that and be upset by it?
Come for the Marvel discussion, stay for the soap history lesson.
I had actually a whole point about part of my conspiracy theory about Mephistopheles, who is a rooted Marvel character and who has done many things. It's just the devil. There was this, I think, a thing about embrace the goddess.
Yes.
And I felt like that line was actually like, there's not too many times where I like look, like most of the times I think the commercials are red herrings, because what are we going to learn? Like, oh, Hydra Strucker. That's we know already from watching the movies that Wanda was given her powers via Baron von Strucker. We know that Vision is basically created by Tony Stark. Back, debatable, but and so there was this whole thing about embrace the goddess that I felt was very much like, if the devil is a man and what is the competing force against a male god is the goddess or something. I don't know. I had this like duality in my head of like, all right, you have Mephistopheles who's posing as this woman, and then you have Wanda comes in, who is someone who turns out to be of equal power. What do? You embrace it. You don't try to fight it. You coax that into a comfortable area. You make a deal. Anyway, that's what I got from that commercial. But I think I guess that's my other discussion point is that I want to bring up to all of you. And I'm going to start with Feyhd real quick. Are these commercials important, or are they red herrings or fan service?
I think they're just fan service at the moment. Like, maybe they're just little kickers, so like if you aren't aware of like any Marvel history, that you can just get a little taste, just be like, oh yeah, like these are some names you might want to look up, or like something like that. Just be like, these people are important in like this universe, so just like listen to this and maybe it might come up again. But beyond that, I'm not seeing anything that says to me like, oh, like we should have been paying attention to this like the whole time.
Alandra, Tony?
I think the commercials are breadcrumbs. I don't think it's going to be entirely like plot relevant, but I think it is sprinkling in plot, like breadcrumbs of ideas or reminders. And again, if we're going to the idea that this reality is in some way being created or manipulated by Wanda, consciously or otherwise, I think that the commercials are an active part of that. And I think that they are drawn from her subconscious. Because you notice there's this thematic where it's almost like she and Vision don't totally remember the past prior to coming here. Like, they do, but they also don't. Mm-hmm. And she definitely seems to be more meta-aware than he does. Like, he's meta-aware that, like, the things that have happened to them in this town don't totally match up and there's weird stuff. But she's the only one so far that's had a memory prior of anything in the MCU prior, because she remembered Pietro. So I do think maybe the commercials are a breadcrumb of her subconscious trying to remind her of these other things, which is why you get these little name drop references that are things that she would be conscious of. So that's my working theory on the commercials. I also just remembered a whole nother conspiracy theory side of things, and I was like, oh no, put a pin in this for later.
All right. I was actually going to say the whole I think Tony. Sorry, I jumped in. Tony.
Yeah. I don't think they're total red herrings. I think there's a little bit of. I think especially the first two was just kind of hinting, because the I almost called it the Calgon commercial, but the commercial in this episode as far as I know, it's the first one that doesn't have any kind of weird foreboding tension to it. It's just kind of a straightforward commercial. And as Buccaneer Aaron pointed out in the chat, the Strucker commercial, it makes time for you. That it's, we knew, in episode 2, we know a little bit less, but that's kind of the first thing, like, makes time, get it? So certainly when we get to what was it, like, find your inner goddess or something like that, the word goddess struck out to me. That it was like, I don't know what this means, but I bet it means something. I bet that's gonna come up later.
So something I noticed, because my whole idea is that everyone in the town is dead but Wanda. Also, this tied into like American Horror Story, where it's like, if the devil was going to make a child, he'd do it big. So he would be like a ghost impregnated a lady, and then we have a ghost baby, and which is first season of American Horror Story. There was this. The reason why I don't think. Why I think everyone's an individual person who is dead and not just a construct is that in this episode, for the first time, we cut away to another character who is not Wanda and Vision. We cut away to Mustache Guy. I can't remember. And his wife, who turns out to be Dottie. This is the first time we realize he's married to Dottie. And she comes in with the earrings, is like, dude, these earrings make me look fat, and then the lights go out. And he says, thank God. This is the first time that ever happens. This is the first time we are given that people have lives outside of Wanda and Vision. We kind of get the hint when the doctor is fixing his car. But this is the first time the show cuts away. And now I think we're given the hint. And I think this is where I've been trying to pull most of my hints from, is when the show cuts away from Wanda. Because when we cut away from Vision, we realize, okay, Vision has his own thoughts. He has his own motivations. He is not just there because Wanda says he's there. He goes out and does things that Wanda doesn't know about. And now we realize, all the other characters do things that Wanda doesn't know about. I mean, clear example towards the end of the episode, there's people whispering about Geraldine and also having full conversations with Vision that Vision's withholding from Wanda. So this is where the world, I think, is definitely like, okay, there's something more. Wanda stepped into a thing. She didn't create a thing.
Have we already talked about, in the last session of this, did you guys talk about Agnes and who her clear corollary is? Because in this episode, it becomes really clear who she probably is.
I mentioned it, I think, in passing, because I don't know the character very well. Okay. Go crazy.
Well, because I was just saying, because if going with your theory of everybody's dead, like everybody's an actual person, but we are in an area where they are dead, so we are in some sort of like purgatory, alternate universe, something, which is very Marvel. Agnes, the neighbor, seems like she's a very clear, obvious corollary for Agatha Harkness, who was a witch who survived the Salem witch trials. It has sort of these similar sort of like superpowery things, and was one of Wanda's mentors in certain strings. I think it's the 616 universe of the comics. And going back to the fact that we now have the twins, and the Mephisto theory, the twins were originally born due to Mephisto's manipulations, and then he reabsorbed them, and Wanda had another one of her famous mental breakdowns, and was then able to reconceive and rebirth the twins through the help of the spirit of her mentor, Agatha Harkness. So the fact that we've got the twins, and we've got this Agnes figure who seems like a clear corollary to the Agatha character, there might be something else going on here of like either they're dead, or at least they are other characters who are self-aware of Wanda's powers, and they are leaning into the manipulation here.
Yeah.
Yeah, didn't the doctor also say something about like not being able to escape? You know,
Yes.
it's like,
Oh yeah.
yeah,
He said
something like that. And
it's hard to leave small towns. Yeah.
yeah, and that was
Save
just like,
small towns.
okay. So it's like, yeah, clearly it seems like, yeah, the population of the town is trapped there somehow. They might be dead, they might not be.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think that they're dead.
Yeah.
I think the fact that when Monica is kicked out of Westview, the fact that Westview in that little epilogue is a town. Like, this isn't a made up. Wanda didn't make up Westview. Westview exists outside of this universe, which leads me to believe that she has somehow, or someone has, like, just created a universe within this town that everyone's kind of trapped in.
Yeah,
and I think that's what
towards.
Herb was trying to say, that, we're all stuck here, or we're all being forced to do this, or something, something like that. But yeah,
Well,
that's where I'm leaning towards with this.
To that, Buccaneer Aaron brought up that Agnes has the same brooch in every episode, by the way. In the first episode, she wears it at her neck. Second episode, I think it's on the right. And then in this last episode, it's right under her neck again. I half agree with you, Tony, in that I think this might be the justification why death, the thing that comes beyond death, is as important as the thing that happens in life. I still think everyone is dead, but I think that we're going to be shown that what happens in death matters as much as what happens when you're alive. Because that is a kind of a common thing in the comic books, is that and I love it. Leaf Smith, the guy who owns Mission Comics in San Francisco, we were talking about this, about like, how do you maintain, I mean, granted, comic books are a soap opera, but still, how do you maintain excitement when characters just die and come back left and right? And he started pulling issues of comic books that mentioned this very thing. And one of them was was an Avengers comic book that was all focused on Black Widow, telling these newspapers not to publish a story about someone coming back from the dead before they had come back from the dead. And the answer was like, well, we know you will. You always do. This person always comes back from the dead. We are just going to get a jump on it. We're ready to print it because it's going to happen tomorrow morning, because we know it's going to happen tomorrow morning. What's the point? And their point was, like, every time we do it, we still feel like the same wounds on it. The comic doesn't address what happens in death, but it was this idea that, like, coming out of being dead in the Marvel Universe is as painful as living. So I think there's still an argument for and then Wanda, in my conspiracy, is trying to have two boys or have children and ends up with two boys, doesn't want them to be stuck in this dead world, wants to be able to pull them out so they can't be dead children. This is where it gets like creepy, occultish, I had sex with the devil kind of things, where we're starting to like get into like, what are these kids now that they live in, that they were born in a world where dead people live, their father's a dead man.
I would wonder in that case, if this is a world in which everyone is dead, why does she not immediately find her brother?
Yeah.
Because he is one of the only he is one of the major Marvel characters that we've seen in the MCU who played a major role and died and has not come back. It was not fake. There was no regeneration. He died in an act of self-sacrifice and he is gone. She even has that great line to Ultron about, like, do you know what it's like to feel your soul die? Because I just did, so I would wonder, like, if that theory is correct, I would wonder what effect that has, especially because she has now remembered him. In the first reference the first direct reference we've really gotten to him in many, many Marvel properties since, or MCU properties, I should say.
Otis, Tony, do you have anything to say on that before I jump in and say exactly why we haven't seen Pietro?
I was just thinking, well, he might become a character in the city in this next episode, potentially, if that theory is correct, because that could be a thing that could happen. But yeah, otherwise I'm not sure.
I think it's he's going to come back through. Oh damn! What do they call it in episode 9? Dark science or something like that. Evil science.
Evil science.
I think they're gonna bring it back. It turns out it was Palpatine the whole time.
Damn it! It always is.
Of course.
If you didn't play the Fortnite game, then then you didn't hear the message. You have to do all this ancillary crap for a movie to make sense.
Oh man! So wait, are you telling me that's the podcast we need to do? Is where you read all the Star Wars books that make sense of Episode 9?
I refuse. I wash my hands of current Star Wars fandom. It's gotten out of hand.
Mm-hmm.
I do not stalk celebrities on social media. Whatever they want to do with their lives is fine with me. I don't care.
That's a hot mess. That's a hot mess to deal with another time.
Anyway, your Pietro argument.
Oh, okay. One, he didn't die on American soil, for one. I guess neither than Vision. Never mind. Let's scratch that.
I was gonna say, cancer, neither did
And he didn't die in the murder house for American Horror Story, so he can come back. Just dragging his body.
And that's a stronger point than I had. The next one was that you mentioned that he died in self-sacrifice. He literally died, not to get too Christian about it, he died sacrificing himself.
But so did Vision.
No, Vision didn't. Vision died the first time in self-sacrifice. He said, "You have to destroy me," and then time rewinded, and Thanos pulled this crystal from his head.
Yeah, so he died in self-sacrifice.
No, he was murdered. You can't say you sacrificed.
Pietro. He was shot 100 times.
No. Pietro grabbed Hawkeye and saved him. Vision
was murdered in the process because another person deliberately killed him.
Vision is straight up just a victim, and I think that's the pressure is that everyone in this town is a victim. They're not martyrs. They are everyday people, and Vision, in being just straight up murdered, becomes an everyday person. So I think that's why you're never going to see Pietro. In a weird way, he's off into an actual better place because he sacrificed himself. Vision was ready to sacrifice himself. Wanda broke his crystal and fucking killed him. And then Thanos said, no, he doesn't get to be sacrificed. He has to be murdered because that's the only way I gain my power. And instead of becoming a hero, becomes a victim.
And so in that case, my counter argument is going to be, I want to see how they bring Loki back, because Loki technically also died in Ragnarok in a self-sacrificial way, but he is able to come back.
Oh yeah.
Spoilers,
Tony, I'm so sorry.
What? Oh,
that's in the first 5 minutes of the movie.
Welcome to MURS, where we just spoil all of the Marvel Universe for Tony.
I'm glad MURS doesn't have a T in it.
All the movies I've had 7 years to watch at this point. By the way, when are my favorite characters, Black Widow and Iron Man, going to show up on this show? What?
Once Black Widow's movie gets out of post-development hell.
Oh no! I mean, I'm sure it's been. It's not post-development hell; it's post-COVID hell.
And that's fact.
Poor Scarlett Johansson. All she wanted was a movie to call her own.
She didn't have to steal it from another marginalized group, and then we did this to her.
So,
wait till she in a few years she can become a nurse and then make a real difference and all this. That was a theme this episode was just knocking down women left and right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Also, I was kind of wondering if, the black characters getting more, screen time was a part of the time skip. Because, they weren't really there in the first couple.
I actually had the same thought.
Yeah.
And we just rewatched 1, 2, and 3, and in a scope of what's the right word? Inclusion, I guess. The first character to talk to Vision is a man of color, but he's, I mean, like, you know,
whose name is like Norm or something.
Norm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is Norm.
Yeah.
Herbert is like the leader of the watch in the second episode, and in the third episode he's one of the only characters. I don't know if that's a change in the time. And here's the thing: is like I think part of call bullshit on me. I think this has more to do with the fact that these people are modern day people who are trapped and dead. And,
or at least modern day people who existed in this town.
Exactly. No, exactly.
Yeah.
I think this town is dead, and these are modern day people, and we have a very diverse town. I don't think the times and settings are trying to change their standings in the community, which is also like a caveat of Disney. I was telling Aaron today about like I noticed that everything. Okay, one of the popular theories with the Beekeeper is that he's the supervillain Swarm. Swarm is a guy made up completely of bees. I'd prefer if his name was 1,000 Bees, but what are you gonna do? I'm covered in 1,000 bees. Oh no, who's attacking 1,000 bees? Swarm is a Nazi scientist who was part of Hydra, and all this stuff fits the whole Hydra shtick. And Disney has a big point. I noticed right from the get-go when this Captain America movie came out, Red Skull was not part of the Nazi army. He was part of Hydra, which is why he has an octopus armband, which means kids can dress up like him for Halloween. Mm-hmm. You don't have a bunch of kids dressing up with swastikas. They have octopus symbols.
Yeah.
As only whatever. Thank you. Whatever. Okay.
You were right. I thought you were
comments. It's fine.
Yeah. I thought you were going to keep going. I was like, okay,
all right.
You're right.
I have a thought, but I'm gonna let you finish first.
Yeah.
Though, so I feel that it is a clever point to like make a very diverse timeline for Disney to make to basically erase a lot of history. I don't know how you want to look at it because it's comic books, but comic books have always been very. Comic books have been very. It's always had its finger on the pulse of the nation, of movements, of political movements, no matter what you look at it. But then you have this show, which is very diverse, but taking place in old times. Where was I going? Swarm. Why I don't think Swarm's a bad guy. Oh, because he's a Spider-Man villain, and Sony owns Spider-Man, and why we shouldn't see Swarm. Anyway, Otis, that's my thought on it. Do you notice? Do you think it's any different, lesser different? That's what I got from it, was that it's either Disney playing safe or they're using an excuse to play safe.
Yeah, that was also like my second guess, is like it's probably Disney just playing it safe and like just so they don't have to address it. I was just like, okay, like one way or the other. But it was like, I'm not sure if that was part of it or not, but it seems like that might be less of a focus because you can't keep that up, at least for further episodes anyways. So it's just kind of a thing.
Yeah.
One thing that was really interesting, is I'm glad you kind of mentioned that, Otis, is that in episode 2, because I also rewatched the first 3 back-to-back just to kind of, get a sense of things. Mm-hmm. When Vision first walks into the neighborhood watch meeting, the group at the table represents as very diverse. Like, he is clearly like the white dude walking in, like or at least it reads that way. Mm-hmm. And my immediate thought, like for 2 seconds, I forgot what show I was watching, what universe I was in, and I was like, did this pasty white guy just crash a secret Black Panther meeting and not realize? Is that going to be the gimmick? And then I was like, wait a minute, this is a Marvel Disney show. That's absolutely not what's happening. But it was interesting that was almost the setup that it looked like it could be, and then it turned out it's kind of like the gossipy neighborhood husbands instead. But
it's literally Neighborhood Watch. We're watching the neighborhood.
Yeah, watching the neighborhood. But it was interesting because I was like, oh man, that would have been such a cool direction to go if it turns out that it's going to be like, Vision's going to get really involved in civil rights. I'm like, that's not, I don't think that's where the show is going.
And then suddenly it's actually the Watchmen. And you're just like, wait.
Surprise!
Oh. I don't know. Everybody likes that Watchman show. Let's get that in there. First of all, in a perfect world, or the perfect worm, in a perfect world, if the character of Swarm shows up, he will be played by Eddie Izzard. That is
covered in bees.
Make it happen, internet. I don't know how these things work.
Covered in bees.
That would be amazing.
But a quick little side tangent for anyone out there who watches the video essays of Lindsay Ellis. She has one called "The Ideology of the First Order," which is about Disney kind of towing the line with the First Order of Star Wars of, okay, they're space Nazis, but how do we present it in a way where we can, kids can still dress up like them for Halloween and it's not problematic. So this is a line that they have walked before. Also, if I remember correctly, and the last time I saw Captain America, it was in the theater, so 10 years ago at this point. But if I remember correctly, the Nazis still exist in this universe. But like, oh, that Red Skull guy, he's worse than Hitler. Like, it's
absolutely.
Still the Nazis still exist, but it's just like, oh, they're nothing. And then we had real life Nazis since then, so now it just it holds up. But
so it's kind of like, yes, in Captain America there was real life Nazis, and they make a point in the movie, be like, you can't. Here's the movie. Thankfully, does not say there's an organization worse than the Nazis. They just say that Red Skull is part of the science wing of Hitler's Third Reich, and he calls it Hydra. And Hydra, being fairly independent, says, "Hey, these Nazis, they're gonna fall apart. Let's go do our evil stuff elsewhere." And they kind of like, and they kind of walk away.
Got
it. So when it comes to like Ant-Man, they show up pretty directly in Ant-Man because what's his name, who plays Yellowjacket, who ends up being the villain Yellowjacket, is directly working with Hydra. And they talk about like how World War II gave them a bad name because all they do is just technology and weapons stuff. They don't do any weird Nazi ideology. It's like, World War II, that wasn't us. That was the H-Man. H-Man did that one. But it is like, I have the same issue with Star Wars where I want to have a Stormtrooper helmet. I've always wanted to have a Stormtrooper helmet, but I've always feel like, do I really want to look like a Stormtrooper the entire time? Because the more I get looking at people's cosplay, the more I realize I don't want to look like the guy who did that.
Yeah, it's weird. Yeah. But also Stormtroopers are really cool. But
that's so cool though.
Yeah. It's like,
I mean,
yeah.
Your argument is exactly correct, though. Oh, but man, the fashion designers who got on those like well-fitted brown uniforms for the Germans was like on point.
Yeah.
They developed all the maneuvers by watching American cheerleading, so everything's just like really synchronized and like efficient and cool looking. They're so cool. You kids should totally join the youth rendition. Like that's the whole point.
Well, also, to be fair, Alandra, like, maybe you shouldn't be making the AOK sign when complimenting the costume designer.
Here's the thing. People have been using that as the AOK since longer than it was a thing.
It's true.
And I'm very frustrated that I have to police my knowledge of American Sign Language and making the letter F in order to make commentary. But you are correct. It is something that we have to be conscious of now.
Man,
I'll just continue to the jog on, which I learned actually only has modern origins. So
yeah, no, I keep catching myself because I do it a lot, and it's just like, hey, that's great. Yeah.
Yep.
I have an issue with where I only listen to power metal bands, and I have to be like, oh wait, was this power metal band racist 20 years ago, or are they currently racist?
20 minutes ago on Twitter, yeah.
Right.
But it is an interesting thing to bring up, like all of this conversation about like organized, unified bad guys that are kind of Nazi coded, but definitely not Nazis in these kinds of properties. And it is especially relevant to try to like tie this back into WandaVision, because the like trickle down of the Hydra and the aftermath of Hydra and what Hydra evolves into and becomes, which we track through the first two renditions of the MCU, has such a direct impact on how Wanda becomes what she is, because that's where she gets her powers from, but that's also, you know, and that's how she's set up as an antagonist to Stark, but then has to come around and realize, oh, this is like decades of all of this underground secret science BS happening. So it's interesting to see how that any of that may tie back into these characters in this show, especially with the point that Otis was making about like, is this diversity because we're in 2021 and we can cast diversely, or is it actually making a larger point, you know, within the world of the show itself?
On that note, and this is going to be a real bullshit thing, you know, I was thinking about it, and right after coming off of the takeover of the Capitol and the thankfully non-violent inauguration, in all the villains that we have in the MCU, only one of them has been credited with taking down governments, and that it was what's his name from Black Panther?
Killmonger?
Yeah, well, he takes over, but does he necessarily take it down?
They mentioned that his they talk about his character specifically has been like he's the kind of guy who will go and disrupt a government, disrupt a whole nation's system.
Like, but not specifically Wakandans.
No, not specific. No.
Gotcha.
I'm trying to remember the name of the actor because I can't remember the name of the character.
Michael B. Jordan?
Yeah,
Michael B. Jordan.
Nick Cannon. I was like, no, he looks like Nick Cannon, but it's not Nick Cannon.
So they mentioned Michael B. Jordan's character as
Killmonger.
being Killmonger, as being as being a nation disruptor, where he'll go in and sow seeds to disrupt a nation. And it's like, great, like, why not make him a fascist white guy on the internet? that makes more sense now than ever. Oh, sure. Jesus Christ. Where have we gone? What's wrong with us?
Surprise, you brought me on, and I was like, I don't know anything about comics, I just have random trivia. Little did you know that will drag you into a vortex of horrifying and unending commentary.
That's what we're here for.
Can we get someone to get us out of this? Tony, tell us about Disney and its unaffiliations with white supremacy.
So in 1946, Walt Disney wanted to take the Uncle Remus stories and make a motion picture.
Oh, stop it.
And then once we had all forgotten about it, we went, I know, a theme park ride that'll be around for the next 35 years.
So the children could ask, Mommy, what movie is this from? And she could be like,
That's been my joke for years, is Splash Mountain featuring all of your favorite characters from the beloved Disney classic Splash Mountain.
Yeah, that's it.
Don't worry about it.
Here, I'm gonna try to pull the seg for Luke. Is this where we talk about our predictions for the next episode? Is this where we talk about our theories?
I think
we're gonna riff because we're going into the 80s, right?
Yeah, we're getting into the 2-hour mark, so we might as well talk our predictions. I would like to start with Otis. Otis.
I think, we're definitely going to see more like interference from the outside world, and yeah, time's going to progress again. I feel like, Geraldine is going to come back maybe as a new character or maybe as the same one, and like nobody will remember, and they'll just be like, oh yeah, of course she was here the whole time. It's unclear. Let's see. I feel like there's going to be more of a rift between Vision and Wanda. I feel like Vision isn't aware of the time he's missed, since he's been dead, or maybe that he's actually died. And so he might just be like, oh, I'm just suddenly here, and Wanda's telling me this is fine, so I'm just going to make the best of it. Or maybe it's a new Vision. That is also kind of a theory in the back of my mind, that it's not the original Vision. It's like Vision, 2.0 kind of a thing, or 3.0, I guess. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Anything else to add to that?
That's it.
All right. I'm going to go to Alandra. Yeah. Alandra.
Okay, theories for next episode. I do think Geraldine's gonna come back. I'm not sure if it'll be this episode or later on. And in what form. My biggest thing that I expect for the next episode is I think we're gonna get more from Agnes, because I think she is now aware that, she's at least now aware that Vision is maybe catching on to things being weird. And because she was the one who specifically asked at the end of this episode about Geraldine being inside with Wanda right now. So I think whatever level of self-awareness she has of what's going on here, which I think is why she is kind of the nosy neighbor that she is, or the neighbor that's always kind of lurking, I think that's going to maybe start to come into play more as she's like, oh, I got to do damage control. Who she's doing damage control for, whether it's the neighborhood, herself, on behalf of Wanda and Vision, on behalf of Dottie, whatever, that remains to be seen. I still think she's kind of an unknown as far as whose side she's on, I'll say loosely. But I think that may be one of the next things that we see come into play is how Agnes responds to everything that happened at the end of this episode. I also agree about seeing more of the rift between Wanda and Vision as he becomes a little more aware of what's happening, maybe, and they start to clash about what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Tony, what do you think?
First of all, I think in terms of, we're moving into the 80s, so I think it's going to be a riff on family ties, growing pains, a certain other family sitcom from the 80s that starred a very popular black stand-up comedian whose name I've conveniently forgotten. But I think my prediction is this is going to be the first episode with like an exposition dump for the audience. I think this next one is going to be the one where like they explain what sword is, or there's something that like, okay, we've done 3 episodes of tension and what's going on. We're going to give you a couple of big pieces in episodes, because I think is it 8 episodes for season 1?
9.
Oh, it's 9. Oh shit! Might not be till 5.
Yeah.
Also interesting, because then that throws off. Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany have been alternating top billing with each episode, so it means Elizabeth Olsen will get 5 episodes. Paul Bettany will only get 4. Which that's a whole show business thing, but like. Yeah, that's usually a point of contention with people. But anyway, it's not so much a prediction, but I'll turn it back to all of you. Because the pregnancy was so fast, the next time we see Billy and Tommy, will they still be newborns, or will they be 3 or 4? Or older. Or
that's a very soap opera question, and
which actually it would be a reference to growing pains, because they had a daughter on the show, and then like 2 years they're like, screw it, she's 6 now.
Yeah.
So I want to do real quick fire on that. Then my prediction then is I think episode 5 will be a Roseanne episode. So I imagine they're going to be teenagers on episode 5.
Oh,
so
okay. All right.
Episode 4, any focus, because I'll give you my idea of what next episode will be. any focus on Wanda and Vision's children will be a growing pains. Like 6 or some odd. Otis, what do you think for
Yeah,
age?
I think they're gonna be like immediately when we next see them, they're probably gonna be like toddlers, I feel like, but we're gonna see them grow throughout the episode. That's my take. Like every cut, it's gonna be like just a different actor. What? And and then the cut back, it'll just be another one, and then they'll have a scene.
That's like shit I fucking love. I love seeing like just cutbacks to like older characters or larger objects or things getting smaller. I don't know if all of you know that Ant-Man's my favorite movie because I get to see things from being blown up.
Uh-huh.
I get so giddy. My favorite science fiction movie is The Incredible Shrinking Man. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids is like top billing for me. It's like that is I love things that are improportionate. All right, sorry. Alandra, what do you think?
I don't know that I had a particular thought, but I like the idea. I like this idea. I mean, I definitely think we're gonna get a weird time skip. I don't at least to like toddler. I don't think they're still gonna be infants.
Yeah.
But I'm now rooting for the concept that they just age all the way up into middle school throughout the course of the episode, and no one ever acknowledges it. It just happens every time they show up.
Yeah.
The other theory is they don't even show up at all in the next episode. Like there are off-screen references to them being around, and we just never see them, which I think is interesting for a different reason. So we'll see.
I guess my theory for next episode. I think next episode we are introduced explicitly to the world outside of Westview, and I think we're going to get a huge change in perspective. I don't know who has top billing in the next episode.
It would, if they're alternating, it would be Paul Bettany.
It would be Paul Bettany. I think we're going to have a lot of focus. Still, even I think if Paul Bettany is going to be the focus, we're going to see Paul Bettany explore the dome, explore the rims of this world, and we're going to get a lot more from the outer world. I think next episode we're going to get a lot from S.W.O.R.D. We're going to see a lot more boots on the ground. What is this thing we're encountering? Is Wanda stuck in? Is it? Who is doing this? And fun thing I've seen, if you go onto Disney Plus and you look up if you go just the plain main screen where you can choose episodes, there's the way the promotional image you see is Wanda and Vision, and Vision's holding Wanda, and you see different TV screens. One of them is from the first episode. The screen shows the first episode. One is like their costumes when they're superheroes. If you look to the far right, there's a TV on its side that shows the outer world.
Mm-hmm.
It is Monica. Well, just go up straight up, call her Monica. It's Monica, and who I believe is, and Alandra, help me out here.
Darcy Lewis.
Darcy Lewis.
Kat Dennings' character from the Thor films. Yep.
Yes.
Oh.
And then there's a third figure. It looks like it's somebody in some sort of uniform, possibly.
I have an idea who it could be.
Yeah, I've got a couple of theories,
believe.
but it looks like it's someone who's in something of a sword or a shield-esque uniform, that sort of jumpsuit insignia sort of thing. But it's kind of fuzzy, so we're not quite sure.
Interesting.
But yeah.
So I think we're going to get a full-on, just straight-up S.W.O.R.D. episode with cuts to Paul Bettany, Vision, looking at how far this hellscape goes.
Interesting.
And if we get Kat Dennings involved, then we can throw in some Two Broke Girls references. So
I'm sure.
Finally,
the sitcom heritage of this cast, it just keeps coming together.
Not even that. I hear what's his name from Ant-Man. Who was the guy who was like watching Adam Scott the entire time of Ant-Man 2? Like he was in the like sitcom Right Off the Boat or something.
Oh. Randall Park?
Randall Park, yeah. Jimmy Woo.
Yes.
Is the character. That's right.
I think he's in the show.
Yeah.
He's been confirmed in the show. So I think he's going to show up in it. Like, I think he's going to be just in there. Like,
he's going to show up on that end of things almost certainly. Especially
and if it,
him and Darcy showing up as part of the outer world and just being like, all right, look.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense.
When Thor had Meow Meow show up, it caused a huge... calling Mjolnir Meow Meow. Or Mjolnir, whatever it was.
I would hope by this point she can pronounce it correctly because she's actually been like learning shit about the world around her.
Scratch that.
With Jane gone, she is now clearly the lead scientist.
Yeah.
I think not calling it correctly shows how she doesn't give a shit about what it's called. And just says, you know what? That is what it is.
To be fair,
It's
nobody
Meow
in the MCU pronounces that word correctly from the Norse anyway, so I guess it doesn't matter.
Well, okay. How do you pronounce it, Alandra?
I don't speak Norwegian. That is the tongue of my ancestors, and I have not learned it, and I'm sorry. But it is not any of the ways that the Australians using fake British accents pronounce it in these movies. But this is not a judging your Scandinavian pronunciation show. This is a WandaVision recap show.
That's right. We do not promote the Proud Boys, the Proud Boys, or anything like that.
Oh my god, you had to go there. I was just trying to, like, shit on Chris Hemsworth. You had to go back to white supremacy.
I need, you know what? Any platform I have to, like, put my heel in the foot, put my heel at the neck. That's the one. You don't put too far along. Has our government put their heel close to the foot? No, not this show. We're going straight for the neck. Apparently, I don't know if nothing I'm doing is helping. Right.
Nope, not really. You're just kind of digging the hole deeper. It's fine.
It's all good.
Well, sorry, I had a rough D&D section where I had to tell someone's like, you can't say that word. That is offensive. And we went back and forth. It was a derogatory term about Polish people. And I was like, don't. No.
Don't do that. We don't do that here. We don't do that here. We don't do that in the MCU.
All right.
I haven't
Anyway.
done that for like 60 years. Well, anyway.
Yeah, it's like,
that's
why
neither here nor there.
Why even bring it back?
Yeah.
All right. So that's our predictions. We thank you. This is where I guess we need to cut to the audience. Dino Sharky. Thank you for joining us. I think we have all of 2 viewers. This is amazing. This is exactly the content I wanted to promote to all the massive audience we have.
It's more than last week when it was literally just me.
That's true. Good point.
Not true.
Sure.
My mom also watched that.
Yeah.
And now that we've bashed the Proud Boys, she's no longer following us.
What
Oh.
the hell?
What?
Okay,
Wow.
now you've crossed a line. Now you've gone too far. You're putting
How
the
have we
heel
not
in your
been
mouth.
TOS'd
Is
yet?
what you're doing.
All right. Landra, where can everyone find you at?
You can find me on all social media at Lady Bedivere, with the exception of TikTok, where it is Milady Bedivere, because somebody else already had the other username and isn't even using it. Yep. If you want to see me soon, you can tune in tomorrow to twitch.tv/Lark Network and watch me and a couple friends from the Torpid Gaming Network crush the home team at D&D's only sporting event, Melee Ball.
Cool.
All right. Tony, where we can find you?
You can find me on TikTok at Lady Bedivere, and
I knew it was you every time!
you can find me on Instagram at Tony Ciramelli, and thank you to Charmstone Games, who was watching at the beginning, and they started following me on Instagram while we've been talking. Thank you. You can also see right now, boom, there it is, thehorseshead.blog. One way, I'm covering every movie on the National Film Registry, including, very recently, I covered The Incredible Shrinking Man.
Hey.
So funny you mention it. So I saw that for the first. I had never seen it. It's quite enjoyable. It holds up very well.
Mm-hmm. And Feyhd, where can we find you?
You can find me at Muds Mahandra on Twitter and at just Mahandra on Instagram, because I like to make all of my users different for maximum, obscurity. Yeah.
And then you can find me at Questing Luke at most places. Instagram is at Questing Luke. Instagram, wait, I just said that. Twitter is Questing_Luke. You can go look up Questing Group on Facebook, but there's nothing that happens there. You can join our Discord at the Questing Group. There, I'll put up a channel for just people to throw up any thoughts, ideas, conspiracies they have about WandaVision. And everywhere else, I am at Lady Belvedere on TikTok. And
we share an account.
You clearly don't. He inverted letters. You all are just trying to confuse the problem.
Dyslexic viewers.
I think if you want Milady Bedivere, it is Alandra. If you want Lady Bedivere, it's Tony. And if you want those Lady Belvedere,
then you should go to your local liquor store and support them by picking up a 6-pack.
There you go.
Also, I also want to include where you can't find me, which is on this show anymore because you made the weird comment about my mom. I don't know. What did she do to you?
nothing. She did everything. Oh, well, all right. You stay on later. Anyway, good night, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Yep.
Good night.